Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of the Coaches Preview Show. We have a big matchup tonight between Summit Spartans and the Nolensville Knights, and we're joined by the two most charismatic coaches in the WCS Sports Conference, Coach Will Hester, Brian Coleman. Now, it's an interesting dynamic that we have you two on here because we're going to flip the script from 2 years ago. We were here, Ravenwood, serious success, you guys in a building process. We look back 2014, 0-10. 2015, 4-6, win your first region game, first home game ever. 2016, go 7-4, 5-2, get the playoffs for the first time, and here you are sitting this year at 2-1, 1-0 in region play. Coach Hester, you're 0-3 right now, looking for your first win. Now, Coach Coleman, this is your opportunity to give any words of encouragement to the Nolensville Knights in the building process. Now, in all seriousness, you've been on that side of the building process. How difficult is it?
I got a funny story the coaches talked about the other day. The last time we played Coach Hester when he was at Ravenwood, we had a young freshman playing against Van Jefferson. You know who that young freshman was? Ty Carter.
How about that?
We gave him about a 20-yard cushion and just kept him in front of us the whole time. And I don't know if Van even know what to do there because he'd catch him all day long probably. But we've been there. It's tough. I do know that. And
patience is the key. And I know for Coach Hester, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but patience is not a virtue that me or you are neither blessed with, but you've done a whole lot better job than I would have in this process. You know it's a building process. You know it's one of those things. You have been knocking on the door. And I know that has to stick out in your coach's staff mind that have been knocking on the door awfully close, probably ahead of the schedule from a lot of people thinking that Nolensville's right there with an opportunity to possibly win a couple of these games. And talk about mindset right now where we are with Nolensville.
Well, I mean, we're trying to follow the blueprint that Brian Coleman and some of the Spartans kind of set when he got there. I mean, it is a process. 100% is a process. I mean, we are averaging 4 turnovers a game right now. You can't win a game averaging 4 turnovers a game. We went into the half last Friday night with 0 turnovers. Conditions or whatever played a part in some of that kind of stuff. But, we've got to cut that kind of stuff out to be able to compete because our margin for error is so slim, just like I'm sure Brian felt like when he first got there. We've got to play a perfect game. Things have to go our way. Our opponent has to make some mistakes to allow us to stay in some of these ball games. And, quite frankly, me not being real knowledgeable of the rest of the state, having coached in 6A for so long, I was unaware what I was doing to ourselves the first part of the schedule. But look at our schedule right now. Fayetteville's 3-0, ranked in the top 10 in the state in single A. Page is number 3 in the state in 5A. Spring Hill's undefeated with a Georgia Tech commit at tailback, and they're in the top of the group in 4A. And now Summit, who quite frankly should be undefeated. I think Coach Coleman would agree that they were probably the better team against Spring Hill that opening night. Had some things gone their way, they would be undefeated. And so wow,
and you look on
what a first part of the schedule. I need to fire the athletic director for putting us in that situation.
And who would that be?
Exactly.
And then you look at the second half of the schedule after the Lawrence County game, Brentwood, who's sitting number 3.
They're not terrible.
And all the schools, not just 6A, but all the school polls, sitting number 3, Lincoln County, Tullahoma. And then you finish up with Maplewood, who right now is Maplewood undefeated as well, I think?
No, they lost.
They're 2-1.
Yeah, they lost.
And then Marshall County
Gavin
to finish out. So, it's not like you have a cupcake schedule in the first year of varsity play by any stretch.
Right. And, the front half of our schedule is more difficult than the back end. We've got to survive this first half of the season to have a chance in the back half in the region play. And I think our region is pretty there's a lot of parity in our 4A region. Spring Hill and Marshall County on paper are definitely the class of the region, but the rest of us are kind of wadded up in there together. And, there are some opportunities for us down the road. We've got to find a way to get back healthy and continue to improve. I think we've got better every week. We just have to continue moving in that direction.
Well, in your first week, Fayetteville, 27-26. What was the score going into halftime? Remind me.
We were down 21-0 at the half. We had probably played everything that could go wrong in the first half had gone wrong. But you still felt like we had a chance, and the kids bought into that. And, that's the one thing I can say about our kids. Everybody's like, how are the kids? What's the mindset of the kids?
I just asked you that question.
Our kids just – all the lay people who don't know anything about football ask that.
2-3 zones.
But our kids are great. They practice hard every day. You know, they're dancing around to the music at practice, and they're excited to still be out there. They're excited to be better. I mean, we're not, licking our wounds and talking about woe is me and all this kind of stuff. We realize that this is a process. We've been talking about it for 2 years that this is a process. We've laid out, a finite, measurable set of goals that we've got, and we're still on track to reach some of those goals. We just got to continue that direction.
And at the same time, we're taking notes, because if you're not, I am, and when we play these non-conference opponents in the following year, I will remind you what the score is to make sure that we cover the spread on this one. But I don't want to sell you short. I mean, it sounded like when I came off talking about that, it's an interesting dynamic to have you both, because you've been in that seat. And I don't want to say, well, Nolensville's not in here to win a game, because obviously you're wanting to win every game, and your mindset is, like you said, is very good, and that's an awesome thing to do, because you're going to get that win this year. You're going to get something, get that monkey off the back, and get your kids rolling. But we have to remember, you're playing with a roster of kids that can't even drive a car yet. I mean,
we have 10. We have 10 kids.
Oh, excuse me, 10 out of.
The worst part of this job right now is the fact that I have to wait for everybody to be picked up. I mean, we get done in practice at 5:45. I don't leave till 7 some nights.
So for those that do not know about Nolensville, the classes go freshmen, sophomore, juniors. Your roster number is what?
We have 76 kids on the roster, 9 through 11. You've got, most teams in our area, freshmen don't factor in unless they're a superstar like Ty was as a freshman. So in essence, we really are playing with a roster of 47 or so if you take those freshmen out, which is, basically a single A football team. We're basically a single A football team, and, basically exactly what it was when Brian inherited it at Summit. And, it's a process to build that up. The key is, keeping the kids motivated, keeping them encouraged, keeping the coaches encouraged, because quite frankly, the guys that I brought with us from Ravenwood, and we haven't really been in this situation. I mean, going into Friday night, going into tonight, if we lose to Summit, we will have matched our loss total for 3 seasons in the first 4 games of the year at Ravenwood. So, it's definitely different than where we've been, but I think everybody's handling it well.
And to flip the script, looking at the Summit side, you've been head coach at Summit for 4 years now, of the 6 years of school been in existence, correct? Yeah. So when you came in, you saw the exact same growing pains, no doubt. I mean, you got the first year, like we mentioned, 0-10, 4-6, 7-4. I mean, you can see that thing just completely flipping around. And now you're sitting at 2-1, arguably, like he said, could easily be at 3-0. It is what it is. But you're going to be sitting on top of Region 5, 5A right now. You're tied. Obviously, it's early in the season. There's a 3-way tie. Columbia Central's 3-0, 1-0. That's a surprise to a lot of people around the state. Not sure their strength of schedule right now is going to be as high as some, but it's okay. You play who you play. You win beat who you beat. Page right now, I think, is a huge surprise. It is particular to me, even watching this going on. We knew Bubba Johnson was going to be good. Van Lanningham's coming back.
But I think the offensive and defensive line is what the difference is. The difference in last year and this year is, they're more mature there. Right. A lot of those same guys played last year. To me, that's where they're excelling.
And I think it goes to show the only thing I really had to base my decision on prior to watching them play is the Jamboree versus Brentwood. And at that time, I'm not sure, maybe y'all knew, I didn't know how good really Brentwood is.
Well, they played well that
night. And that's what I'm saying. So Page right now, you guys and Page on a collision course in this Region 5 5A. I'm not trying to overlook this game, but in the future,
that's fine.
It's coming down. You guys are going to be a collision course, and at the same time, you guys are on a collision course with that, like you said, in that ward of Tullahoma, Lawrence County, Maplewood group. Whoever can win out of those 2 or 3 games right there is going to be huge. But talking on your side, we go from the maturation growth process to getting over the hump and winning that home game, and then getting over the hump and getting playoffs. Now, what's the goal? What's the mindset here, man? We're going to get ourselves back in this thing. We're going to try to win the region. What is a realistic goal that we've talked about all year long with your team?
We've talked about it before. I mean, it's improving from the years past, I guess. So last year we made it to the playoffs. Lost in the first round. So maybe next year it's maybe this year it's host a playoff game and advance in the first round. So as a program, we're just trying to get better, take steps forward and not take steps back. And one of the things I want to brag on Coach Hester about is what we always ran into was like the second half of a football game when we were at Summit in that 0-10 year. If we were behind, you know, it was sometimes a struggle to even keep our kids in the game, and they're fighting like crazy. I mean, against Fayetteville, they came back and almost won that game, and against Spring Hill, they're fighting the second half, you know, outplaying Spring Hill in the second half. So that's huge to have those kids still fighting that hard and believing in themselves, and they're going to win some football games because they're believing in themselves and they're fighting.
And if anybody knows, you know, I mean, that is a difficult. It's such a at the high school level. There's a lot of mind games involved in this thing. You got to keep them involved. You got to keep them, like you said, keep their minds focused on the right thing. And I agree with you, Coach Hester. That's
and those younger kids.
You are to be commended.
If something bad happens, and they just sink.
Right.
You know, you don't want to see that. You don't want to see the head down. You don't want to see the shoulders slouch. And then you want to keep them still fighting. And I'm telling you, they are.
So, same to you. You go in, you play Spring Hill in that first week.
Yeah.
You think in your head, we ought to win this game, should win this game. You don't win the game, and you lose it in old Summit fashion from behind, right? You led the whole game. So a lot of people were questioning, say, all right, where is Summit right now? Then you come back out, and for the first time in school history, you don't just beat Independence, you beat them 31-17 convincingly. So for you to flip in a week's time, 5 days' time, 6 days' time, get their minds back right now, it's not hard to get them up for Independence.
That's true. That helped out a lot.
But what does that win do for your confidence of your team, though?
Well, I hope it helps out a little bit, you know. But that win's not going to win the game Friday night against Nolensville tonight. I mean, it's not going to win that game. I mean,
that's a good stock answer. I like it.
Keep preaching that. I mean, but on the flip, you can't let the Spring Hill loss lose the next game also. So you got to get over it. And I think these kids. We got to give them a little bit more credit. They forget, you know.
They're more resilient.
Yeah, they're a little bit more resilient.
This stuff means a whole lot more to us.
You're right.
Them.
You're right.
So, you know, we get back from the game Friday night, and we had some opportunities to compete with a team that was picked to the top of our league. You know what I mean? So it hurts, right? You know, we've been home 5 minutes. The music's on in the locker room. They're dancing around in there. And I'm like, you know, that right there, that's what it's all about. I mean,
you're right.
You know, it's like that major league pitcher, you got to have a short memory span.
I mean, that's a fantastic point, because we sit up here and we overanalyze everything there is to do, and we like to look into it. It's an enjoyable part for my you know, to look at all that stuff. But at the same time, looking back on my coaching days, those nights were long, man, because I had a lot of losses.
Don't want to talk to anybody Saturday morning. I don't want to see anybody.
Coach Coleman and I don't have our PhD, so we're not able to analyze it on the level that you are, all the statistics that you've taken and things of that nature. So, you know, I'm actually thankful that I'm just a regular old football coach.
Coach, not doctor.
Yeah. Mr. Producer, we have Bill Belichick and Nick Saban on the show today. That's an astute point. Thank you very much for reminding me of that.
Anytime, Doc.
Well, let's talk about Region 5, 5A. We talked about 4, 4A for a minute. Columbia Central, we said 3-0. Lincoln County, White County, Shelbyville Central. Shelbyville Central right now 0-2. Is that a little bit surprising?
That's very surprising and probably undeserved. I think they outplayed Tullahoma. They just threw a couple pick sixes early in the game, and I think they were down 30-0 at the half, 31-7 at the half, and came back within a touchdown. So that's very surprising. And the second loss was in Marshall County, who's a pretty good football team. So I mean, that's very deceiving. They will be at the top of the region, I believe, when it's all said and done.
So let's talk about tonight. What do we expect to see? We know that Brandon Wharton. We're going to look at the defensive side for you first. Brandon Wharton, great dual threat quarterback. Some of the personnel that they have on the offensive side. What do you expect them to see?
Running back runs the ball really, really hard.
Have you seen any film yet? Have you gone anywhere to get film?
Finally
yet?
got some film.
I was
trying to keep film away from them because it was so good film. I mean, there was no raindrops on the lens or anything like that.
I mean, is Hester is he busting out the VHS handheld?
We don't have the money Summit has over at Nolensville.
We were supposed to meet halfway and swap 2 VHS films, and we only got one.
This is hilarious.
He said he'd bring it back to me, but I still don't have it. So
Nolensville saying that Summit Nolensville doesn't have the money that Summit has.
Their camera broke.
And Summit used to say, "Hey, we don't have the money that you know."
Woe is us.
I mean, it's the same thing over.
I recorded all the stuff Brian used to say. I'm just regurgitating. I'm like Butch Jones, son. I'm gonna repeat everything I've heard before.
Brick by brick. Out there. Anyway,
get my trash can out.
I was under the assumption. Now, back in the day, the basketball days, we did have to travel 3 hours to get a tape from somebody under the cover of darkness. But now
that was 5mm.
I thought that was old days, and now Coach Hester calls it. I guess that's the way it is now.
But don't y'all? I mean, it's just like an easy link, right? What's up with this, man?
Yeah, we're trying everything.
It's just like Pirate Bay. You got to go to Pirate Bay.
Stuff. I mean, we've put in the A11 for this week. Anything we can do to try to get Coach Melton off his game. You know, I know Alex is over there doing curls right now, trying to figure out what's going on.
He's just doing the Brian Coleman workout. He's trying to get. Hey, speaking of, that's a great segue. Alex Melton right now has done a really, really
Very
good
good
job on your defense,
Amazing
man.
job.
I mean, shutout 42 to nothing last week. Held
Yeah,
Independence.
It's 47 nothing, wasn't it?
Was it 47?
2-7, it didn't matter.
Oh, excuse me. I don't want to cheat Summit out of any points now. 47 to nothing. Excuse me. The week before you beat Independence 31-17. You hold them 17 points.
Yeah, he did a great
Talk
job.
about
He had a
you-
great plan against Independence. He does a great job. He's the head coach of the defense. It's his. He does a great job. I trust him fully, and I don't know if a lot of head coaches do that, but I mean it's yours and you have it. And I come over there and I'm under here. I coach the outside linebacker, so he's my head coach for half of practice. So he tells me what to do.
We need to get some film of that.
So Brian and I are exactly the same. We're both the head coach, the offensive coordinator, and the slappy outside linebacker coach.
Well put.
Well, yeah, and your defensive
And
coordinator.
our outside linebackers are terrible. It's our fault.
And on your defensive side, what are we looking at defensively against the wing T? Now it's like going back, looking at this past weekend, the Georgia Tech UT game. A lot of people want to say, well, Tennessee wasn't ready, or Georgia. It's really, really hard to get a full 100% look and run it to precision, kind of like what they'll run in varsity.
You can't simulate it.
That's
That's
right.
the deal. We can't walk out there on Monday and all of a sudden be able to give our guys a look against the wing T. You can't do it. First off, we don't have Ty Carter back there, so if we turn and toss it, it's to a guy running a 5-3, and the angle's a little bit different on your pursuit when you're running out there to get that guy,
You
right?
chase it down instead of trying to meet.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, that's one thing. You can't match speed for speed because your fastest guys are already over there on the defensive team, and now everybody you're taking what's left, right, and you're putting those guys over there. And then, it's difficult anyway. Coach Coleman, I give him a hard time, but, he does a great job of being very multiple out of that offense, whether it's unbalanced formations, the jet sweep, the tall stuff, and then all the misdirection that the wing T is known for. I mean,
Sounds like you watched our show the other night. You could have got game film off that, couldn't
He
you?
could have, yeah.
Misdirection into the wheel.
He learned the word. He's used that wheel word.
absolutely. It's kind of like the pick and roll, I guess.
Did I call it wrong?
You called it correct.
Well-
Here you go.
Offensive
That's what you
coordinator, if I
wanted.
can figure it out, you're in trouble.
But you're a PhD, so the rest
That's
of us
true.
are just lay people.
But I mean, if I'm defense right now and I watched that one time and I call the play for him, I mean, I'm kidding. Go ahead, finish your statement.
They do a phenomenal job on offense. They're going to be difficult to stop regardless. And, it's all about eye discipline. You can't get caught looking at things you're not supposed to be looking at.
So help us out. What are you watching? All right, I'm a linebacker. I'm watching
I
this.
mean,
You got
everybody's watching something different or a little bit different.
Right.
I mean, if you're an outside linebacker, then you have a key that you're supposed to read. If it does this, then I do this. If you get caught looking at somebody else's key, then you're reached or you're kicked out or whatever, is going on. You've got to train in on your piece, and that's what's difficult. I mean, eye discipline is probably the hardest part of defense. If everybody was looking at specifically what they were supposed to look at, everybody would be better on defense. But, that's why there's such thing as misdirection.
well, and here's something that I like that I've seen specifically in the Indy game. I believe we called that, Mr. Producer, you might have to go back and check this, but I kept mentioning the tight end streak across the middle. I knew that was coming at a perfect, opportune time. And
Nobody
but
runs
The
it.
waggle.
Nobody runs that.
but whatever you want to call it.
And it was timed out perfectly because then we did it the next play. It's almost like I heard you say that.
Because I'm telling you, if you want to hire a new guy on your staff, hire me. I can help
We do
you
need
out.
a doctor, so that'd be nice.
Yeah, team doctor. I won't be able to help you in that one
They
either.
love doctors.
Mr. Producer, this show is going downhill in a hurry. My point is this: Ethan
You're out
Cash.
there shuffling.
What does Ethan Cash bring your team, man? This guy can throw the ball, and he throws one of the prettiest balls. I mean, really, he does. I mean, he can throw the rock,
He's
and
doing
especially
well
in
for us.
warm-ups. It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Right, because his coach only lets him throw it 6
I mean,
times in the game.
8
so
times we're
he-
going to throw it in warm-ups.
We couldn't throw it last week as it was a downpour. And I
Okay.
mean, we threw it, I think,
played-
once, and it was complete, or whatever. I mean,
It's a trick play.
It was a busted play. Ty was nowhere to be found. We had to throw it, and there he was. He was open, right?
Ethan does a great job. He's a sophomore, so, growing pains go with that. So, I mean, but he can throw the football. He's a great competitor. Runs the offense well so far, and sometimes he can change. He's already to the point if I mess something up, he can almost change and correct it. So that's great to know. And he's always wanting the film. Share the film, Coach. You guys shared the film with me yet, so he's wanting to learn. That's
Just give him
great.
the keys, man. Just give him the keys. Let him be the audibles if he wants to.
Slim
You know me.
Jim.
You know me too well.
That wheel route, speaking of, perfect on the money down the sideline. He never broke stride into probably one of the breakout players of the year, George Ademegwu. This guy has come. Now, for people outside looking in, it's come out of nowhere. You probably knew it was coming. He was a freshman last year. He's a sophomore this year. He has had a really,
Didn't
really
he
good
have a sister who's like some stud soccer
Olivia,
player or something?
she's a soccer player. She's a senior now. Yep, I think she signed with Western Kentucky as a soccer player.
So if you're studying the Williamson County athletes, you probably have a good idea that his genes are pretty good.
Going through papers right now. We've got him.
He should. He didn't realize the sister was a baller.
I do know exactly who she is.
Oh,
but
okay.
Now
my
I do.
point is, it's not a soccer show. It's a football show. But I do want to say,
Siblings, I mean.
but talk about the year he's had thus far.
Ty, unfortunately, got a little banged up against Independence, and George stepped up. So, I mean, that's great. George takes his spot on the offense and did a great job and, caught the pass and caught a couple passes against Indy, and ran the ball hard last week. He's a sophomore too, so, hopefully that's good for us in the future. But, sometimes with a sophomore, you don't want to get very physical. You don't want to get hit, and George is running the ball hard, and that's not been the case with him so far.
Jatavion Hayes.
Jatavion.
He is the best kept secret in south of the I-65 right now, no longer a secret. Matter of fact, I think his return for touchdown against Independence was the first one that they have given up since the 29 win streak had started. And, this guy is really helping out. We talked about the first year. Who is going to help carry the load? Last year, you had 3 guys that accounted for over 1,200 yards.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I think it was 1,500 yards. And then, you lost 2 of those. Ty comes back, obviously. Outside of Ty, they accounted for 1,500 yards. But you got Ty coming back. Who's going to fill those voids? Now it's obvious that these 2 guys are stepping up to help carry that load. Coach Hester, on your side, Colton Dooley right now playing really well for you at the running back position.
Yeah, he's been our workhorse. 82 carries on the season so far for us, which is labeled as child abuse in some states. But he is our workhorse. But he is a little banged up. Will not play tonight. Ryan Pastulka and Justin Fasadvong will fill in for him tonight on the offensive side of the ball. Can't say enough about 2 of our receivers. Tim Stacekel, over 200 yards receiving, had 97 yards receiving, number 80 against Spring Hill.
Is he the one that I keep referring to that reminds me a lot of
Austin Percy?
Austin Percy from Redwood? Yeah, he's a good-looking kid.
And then number 1, Wes Jones, just a physical kid, blocks really well on the perimeter. He's kind of our deep threat guy, if you will. He's averaging about 20 yards a catch. So, Brandon's got some guys to spread the ball around too, and we're going to have to find some way to be balanced and mix it up, because if we get to where we have to run it every down, we're not going to be able to do that against their strong front. If we have to throw it every down, they're going to pick it off. So we got to be able to mix it up and find a way. Hopefully all the under center triple option stuff we've got in for tonight will help out.
Well, talk about your conversations with Brandon. What kind of conversations are we having right now? What are we looking at? Does he ask those mature questions of, obviously he wants some guidance, but just talk a little bit about your interaction with Brandon, about getting through some of these things, maybe if it's a turnover and trying to work through, say, did you see that? And next time.
Brandon works really, really hard. We were sitting in the first weekend, after the first week of the season, we're sitting in the office having our staff meeting on Sunday, and there's a knock at the door, and there's 2 or 3 of our receiver kids wanting to get their cleats for some reason. And, we go outside, and Brandon's got all the receivers out there throwing. And they've been, unbeknownst to us, been throwing on Sundays, since we started back in July. So, he's working really hard, trying to be a good leader. He's not a very vocal leader. It's more about, just follow how hard I work and the time I'm putting in. And Daniel Childs, who's new to our staff this year, is coaching me in quarterbacks, and I think he's made tremendous strides since Daniel's got there throughout the summer and into now, especially throwing the football. So Brandon's moving along as we would expect, but this is his first full season of varsity football. Last year in JV, you could get away with throwing some balls that you probably didn't need to throw, and now those balls are picked off. So he's maturing, he's progressing. He's not generally making the same mistake multiple times. So as long as he's continuing to learn from his mistakes and get better, he's going in the right direction.
Well, so defensively, you got to be wary of that dual threat. Obviously, he can run. Let's talk a little bit about recruiting right now. Ty, what kind of recruiting radar are we looking at? Well, I know
really
is Toledo one of them right now?
Toledo's one of them. The San Antonio, UT San Antonio, and I think Elon is another one. That's really all he.
Realistically, where can Coach Blade? His statement, and he's told me numerous times outside this show, he thinks that Ty Carr is the best running back in WCS Sports Conference. What do you think about that? I mean, this guy's.
I mean, definitely I would say he is this year for sure. I mean, I don't know how Coach Blade phrased that, but yeah, I would put Ty up against anybody. I mean, he's explosive as a runner with this speed, but he's also physical. I mean, he's the best of both worlds.
So realistically, will there be, do you think there's an opportunity for maybe one of the bigger schools come in?
I was hoping. I mean, especially after the first 2 games we played against the wide receiver, the caliber of wide receivers that he had to play against, and did an excellent job against them.
So that's something we hadn't mentioned. I mean, realistically, he's probably looking at what, a corner spot
corner. That's
on
what
the
everybody's
level?
looking at him. And Odom didn't have a catch, but I don't know how well Odom's been doing lately. I don't know if they're getting the ball to him.
I don't think he had a catch against us either, but it was the monsoon.
That's a scratch. But I mean, he did a great job against the 2 wide receivers from Indy. I think he slipped down right before the half, and they got a play.
That was the only one they got off.
And there's still a big divot in the field where he fell. So that's the only play that he really gave up all night. So he's a shutdown corner, and then I mean we've got to play him both ways. Just he's that good of an athlete and that much of an impact player.
Anybody else on the team maybe that's getting some looks currently?
Not right now, I don't think. No.
What about Brandon? I know it's young, early in the process,
Yeah,
but everybody comes calling early, right?
Yeah, we're hearing from everybody and all that kind of stuff. I think Colton Dooley has an opportunity to be, kind of a Naval Academy type player. I mean, if it was 1950 and we were all wearing leather helmets, he'd be an All-American. I mean, he's that tough and physical a kid, but unfortunately we're not. So, and then we have a 6'6" offensive tackle. I mean, everybody likes that when you walk out there, Ethan Mickelson. So I mean, he's gonna earn some attention as well. So,
well, it's a big night. This is a huge game. We've got some other big games too. Page Ravenwood. I think that's an interesting matchup tonight. Centennial, Cane Ridge. That's an interesting matchup. Brentwood, Stewart's Creek. I think Coach Crawford will have popcorn by halftime on that one. I don't know if y'all will disagree or agree on that.
It's probably definitely possible.
And you get Franklin McGavick as well. Coach Webb and his group. I think it's a little bit of shock right now being 0-3, but it's not an easy night, as you well know, in the 6A group, and you're playing most of the 6A guys. It's not an easy night, any night that we play inside WCS, much less inside your region.
Yeah, I mean, Franklin, they're a good football team. They're still a good football team, and Coach Webb does a great job with them. I mean, they'll be well prepared, that's for sure.
Independence versus Hillsboro.
No.
That's an interesting.
Won't be any athletes on that field.
No, that'd be an interesting storyline there. And then Coach Hughes, Fairview at Waverly. Let's not leave those guys out. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you haven't had a chance to see them play, they're pretty good. Fairview on the 3A level. But tonight's a big game for you guys. Kickoff at 7 o'clock at Nolensville. Any parting words by you two? I'll let you get one parting shot in.
I've got nothing.
I'm glad we got that on record. He has nothing.
I have nothing.
Coach Hester?
Yeah, and we just hope to build our program as he's done there, and look forward to the next couple of years.
Hey, best of luck to both of you tonight. Thank you for joining us for this week's show. Tonight, kickoff 7 o'clock. Thank you for joining us for this week's Coaches Preview Show.
You're always trying to keep your kids safe, right? What about preventing concussion? Concussion can happen anywhere, on a sports field, at the park, even at home. So you need to know the ABCs. Assess the situation, be alert for signs and symptoms, and contact a healthcare professional. Most kids recover completely, but seek care to help them get better faster. To learn more, go to cdc.gov/concussion. Keep kids safe. It's as simple as ABC.